Hey everybody, welcome to today's video. Subject of today is 3D printers, specifically entry-level 3D printers. There's a lot of them out there on Amazon. This one that I acquired about a year ago. I've done projects for my kids, little trinkets. Haven't really spent a lot of time with it. And so what I'd like to do here is start from the very beginning and take you guys through that process. So let's get to it. All right, everybody. We're down in my basement. It's where I have my 3D printer. So let's introduce you to the Diggro Alpha 3. This 3D printer had a couple features that I was really looking for when I purchased a 3D printer. One being a heated build plate. The build plate, which I'll go over here in a little more detail, allows you, that heated build plate allows you to do ABS and some other materials. And so we'll talk about that further later on. The other thing that I really liked about this is it has a color touchscreen display, and it's really user friendly. Some of the other ones out there, especially on this entry level, this lower cost price point, you know, they have a real clunky user interface, and that interface, if it's clunky, it's actually hard to figure out what you need to do, especially in this beginning when you're learning. So those are a couple of things that, you know, I was really impressed with a 3D printer at this price point. All right, so moving forward in this video, we want to talk a little bit more about the details of this printer. Some of the main things, now you can see a little bit more on that touch screen. You know, it's got a real nice user interface. You can see the nozzle temps, the bed temp, and a slew of other setting screens we can go into across the bottom here. The other thing is this build plate. Like I said, it's heated. I currently here have this glass on. We can take it off, and I can show you a couple other things that I've found. The other side's actually the tack. Now that build plate, I think Build Tech's one of the name brands, but you know, it did pretty well for a while, but I'll have to tell you and share some experiences I had with it, and the reason it's on the glass. The other thing I want to talk about is, like, you know, the extruder is back. So this would be the Bowden style. You know, so there is some drawbacks there as far as the total you know, preciseness of this printer. But honestly, at this point, you know, when you're in the 200 or sub 200 category, it's really hard to beat something like this. All right, now I said I wanted to touch base real fast on what happened on this plate. You know, this material worked really well for me for a while. Like I said, I haven't done a lot of prints with this, but the prints I did do worked well until I tried a couple of the wood, basically the wood style PLA. I had a really hard time cleaning it off, so I tried a few other chemicals to get this off. Ended up eating up into my build plate, or the material there a little bit, and once I did that, I decided, you know what, let's give glass a try. And on the few projects I have done, glass worked better. But so let's move forward from the printer. I'm going to flip that back over to the glass, and then what we'll do is get that basically get going on the next print. All right, so we're going to go ahead and run our first file together, and basically the plan is to run a 3D benchy. I want to see where we're at with this 3D printer and where there's room for improvement. Okay, to get started with any of the files, and since I've already preloaded an SD card, it goes around and back, we just come over here to print. And then once we do that, we can locate the files. And I have a lot of other items on here, but we're going to worry about the benchy G code for right now. And so now what it's going to do is it's actually go through its warm-up process, and we'll just let it do its thing and continue on in a minute. So it's warmed up and ready to go. It's initialization right on that front corner. And then once it does that, it'll move to the center of this build plate and start building the benchy. In this particular file, it does print a raft, which is fine. But we'll see how it goes. Well, I do want to say that there is definitely room for some improvement. I noticed that first layer, since we're building on the glass, did move around a little bit. Maybe there's some possibility of using some glue of some sort. I know hairspray or glue sticks do work if you're building on glass, or maybe the upgrade of some the actual true build tack later on might help as well. Alright, so now we're getting roughly to the midway point of this build, and I wanted to touch on just a couple things that I've talked about through this whole video. The reason we use the benchy is it's a perfect metric for our 3D printer. We want to see how it's operating, so we have this benchmark, this benchy, this little boat. It has some overhangs, some different layer things going on, and so here at the end of the video, when we see it finished, we'll be able to critique how this 3D printer is running. The other thing I mentioned was a raft, and all that is just a better way to adhere your model to your build plate. That's really simple as it gets. And they'll peel off later at the end as well. Well, benchy's done. Took about 2 hours and 40 minutes, and honestly, I don't see anything that stands out too much. I'm gonna really look over this more, and I'll get back with you in a minute. Alright, so there we go. We just finished up our 3D print, and I have to say everything went pretty well. And for one of the first times using that glass build plate, besides that first layer issue, it had stayed adhered and did a good job. Once the plate cooled down, it released just fine. So overall, I'd say that glass build plate just does perfect, and from now on out, we'll probably stay using that. Honestly, looking at the benchy, there's a few issues, very minor ones, but layer consistencies around the bow and a few on the cabin. But overall, it does look really good, you know, especially for a 3D printer in this category where I haven't spent any time tweaking and playing with the settings to get it, you know, tuned in just right. Moving forward, as with anything, practice makes perfect. So there's tons of options, whether we tune it in the software or we can tune some hardware, you know, actually on the printer and do some upgrades. We'll get there. So stay tuned for more in this series, and thanks for watching. Have a good one.